Nice. Thank you so much. Good morning, everybody. We're going to start. All the learning this whole month has been done, sponsored by the Jerome family for the Lublin Nishama of Sarah Leah Bat Yechiel. All the Mishpachat Eagle birthdays, anonymously in honor of the Kehila, and also by Mishpachat Pollock for Moshe's grandfathers, and yesterday was Shira's sister's, Joni's sister Shira's Yortzei. I think that's it for today. I hope I didn't miss anyone. Baruch Hashem. Also, Slicha, this specific week is sponsored by Mishpachat Sakal in honor of their son Simon's birthday, Briut Ad 120, and also by Shira and Ari Gontavnik in memory, I believe of Shira's grandfather, and I don't have the proper page in front of me. Mechila, there's two more, but Baruch Hashem, there's so many opportunities to learn that we're gonna keep on mentioning the names even throughout the week. All right, I'm just gonna put some paper. There's more. I have more pages here just to keep over there. Okay, so today we have a shir on a very overwhelming parsha, Parshat Yitro. Parshat Yitro. Well, okay, another parsha shir, right? No, it's like I was learning a piece in Slonim that they say that the Shabbos Yitro is called Shavuot. First of all, it's like called the Shabbos Matan Torah, and it's also called what did he call it? Shavuos Zeira, which was Zeira in Aramaic means little. It's like little Shavuos, mini Shavuos. Hey Shoshana, welcome back. Little Shavuos. So it's not just another, it's not every Shabbos is Kodesh Kodashim, but this parsha is, it's I always find it very overwhelming where to start to learn this parsha. So I saw a piece that is from one of the Sfarim of Rav Tzadok Hakohen that I hope and pray Be'ezrat Hashem will help us connect to the parsha in a very special way. I want to talk about an amazing transformation that takes place in Am Yisrael. This is like a Boker Tov. This is a wonderful way of understanding the transformation that we go through. A few weeks ago, we meet an Am Yisrael that doesn't really believe that they could ever be redeemed, that they could ever become redeemed people. And the Torah says, Velo sham'u el Moshe, they didn't listen to Moshe Rabbeinu. And I want to emphasize the word sham'u. Velo sham'u el Moshe. They couldn't listen to Moshe, or they couldn't hear Moshe Rabbeinu. This Shabbos, when we're coming to Har Sinai, it says, Atem re'item et asher asiti le'nei Mitzrayim, which means you all saw what I did in Egypt. We go from people that can't listen to people that are actually activating the power of re'iyah full on. Who else did this? Which can answer a very popular and famous question. Why is this parsha called Yitro? Well, think about this. Yitro is the one that tells us that listening is the beginning of the game. Vayishma Yitro. The parsha opens up with saying Vayishma. But Rashi tells us that it wasn't enough for Yitro to just hear about the amazing things happening to Am Yisrael. He had to get up and come and see these people for himself in order to basically go on with what was happening, probably from his mind to his heart. He heard something. He says, I gotta see what this is all about. I have to witness this with my eyes. And right after the Torah tells us that he heard, it says, and the Rebbe has a lot of sichas on this, showing you that even when you hear about great things or great people and whatnot, that's not enough. You have to get up and join where that's happening, or be a part, or see with your own eyes where this is taking place. So says, I forget which parsha I saw this yesterday. It says that if you look at the psukim by, I forget who it is, if you look at the psukim by Yitro, it says he gets up and he goes towards, he meets Moshe and everything. Why? Because it's showing us that by him, the Shmiya led to Re'iyah. He had to see it for himself. And then when he gives his Eitzah to Moshe Rabbeinu, remember he gives his famous counsel, the parsha over there is called Ve'ata techezeh mikol ha'amim, which means, Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm going to teach you, a way of looking at things in a healthy way. So what we're seeing over here, and the whole shir could just be on really analyzing these psukim and the Rashis that help us understand it. What we're seeing over here is the different functions which take place between Re'iyah and Shmiyah, between listening and hearing, and how, as a people, the slave in us couldn't listen. We couldn't see it. We couldn't deal with it. We couldn't hear it. The Ben Chorin, the redeemed person, is one that sees. So much so that even though Hashem tells us, you saw all this going on in the last year, when we get to Matan Torah, we start seeing what we're hearing. And they become one. B'chol ha'am ro'im et hakolot ve'et halapidim. And there's this meeting of seeing and hearing, and that's real Geula. That's real redemption. The way the Reb Tzadok Hakohen is going to develop this is very, very beautiful. And it's basically based on the famous debate, the famous, interesting argument when God wanted to create the world and when God wanted to give us the Torah. There's these people, not people, there's an entity that comes and tells God, bad idea. These angels. Usually angel, when you say someone's angelic, that's like a beautiful thing, right? Oh, he's so angelic, right? Angels mess with us throughout the Torah. It's not so, and they're angelic, but not the way that we use that terminology of being angelic. Like if you look at one of your kids now, when you say, "Oh, he's such a malach," it's not. You're not exactly sure what you mean by that now. After learning these types of teachings, because the famous debate was that when Moshe Rabbeinu went up to receive the Torah from Shemayim, it had to go through this argument with the angels that kept on saying, "Don't do it, God. You're going to regret it. You give them this, you're going to regret it." The same thing happens with Briat HaOlam, with the creating the world. Don't do it. You're going to regret it. Why do we know about these things? Why do we know about these conversations? Why do we know about these arguments? It's to bring home the point of what we said in the beginning of Shir about appreciating the transformation that a person goes through from hearing and listening to seeing, and for those things to become one, which is something that the angels have no shayachut to. It's a world that has nothing to do with malachim. And Bezrat Hashem, let's see, we should have atzlacha with this piece. It's a Reb Tzadok piece, which means we got to work a little bit, but we'll work b'simcha. This is from one of his books called Divrei Chalomot. Now, I know, this may sound trippy. I'm reminding you that Reb Tzadok was a Gon Olam before he ever got into Hasidus and was the straightest arrow in the world and a baki in halacha, in and out. But he has a book called Divrei Chalomot, and he also has a book called Sichot Malachei Hasharet and a book called Resisei Laila. And according to the traditions, that many of these pieces in these Sfarim are basically conversations that he was having in his dreams and learning that he took place in his dreams, and then he'd wake up and he'd write them. So this is from a book called Divrei Chalomot, Words from Dreams. HaTorah hi mekor ha'chaim. The Torah is the source of life. Uchmo she'amru zichronam livracha, like it's brought down in the Midrash, hadibrot shel chayim, the utterances, the sayings, the commandments of life, lo nitnu lemalachei hasharet. They were not given to the ministering angels. So like Aseret Dibros is something that's just, bless you, is just given to Am Yisrael. It's not given to the angels. The Amar lahem, Maktiv ba Adam ki yamut be'ohel. He told the angels, one of the ways we understand Hashem silencing the angels was that he said to them, listen, you know what's written in this Torah? It says, Zot Torah. What's the Torah all about? Adam ki yamut be'ohel. There's a lot of different drushes on this. One of the understandings for today is that human beings die. Not the other void, which is usually basically you give your life over, like you're willing, like dying for the Torah. Here it just means people actually experience the opposite of life, which is death. You angels have no shayachut to that world. You never experience death. A human being experiences death. And we're going to see that because a human being experiences death, only because of that, we can actually experience life. If we didn't experience death, we wouldn't experience life. The Torah is called Mekor HaChaim, the source of life. That's not a world that has anything to do with the malachim, with the angels. But again, we all know this only because we know how fragile life is. That's only then really life becomes life. So this is basically what Hashem was telling the angels. He's like, you can't appreciate. This is a Torah that says, Zot Torah Adam ki yamut be'oel. The Torah is speaking to people that aren't going to be here for forever. You angels, I don't know what it is exactly. How long do angels live? We don't really. Is there anyone know how long it's written in the Torah? How long angels live? Probably think forever, no?
They never really live.
Exactly. How long are they around? Right. Exactly. That's a good point. They never really lived, right? How long are they existing? Because God created them. Right? How long do they? What's their? What's their existing span? Interesting stuff. Okay. Al yedei, third line, Al yedei Adam ki yamut, al yedei zeh zocher lezot haTorah veleshev bo'alei Torah. V'hainu kevan de'en bachem mita, and since you don't have any death in you, en bachem metziut hergesh chayut gam ken, then you also don't have any feeling of life either, or what it means to feel alive. Ve'al ken en lachem shayachut im haTorah. Therefore, you have no shayachut to the Torah, angels. Why? Because the Torah, shehu hargashat hachayut shel makor hachaim. Because the Torah is the place where you feel life being given from the source of life. Hashem is the source of life. He gives this energy of life through the Torah, and thus you and I, Baruch Hashem, every time we are wrapped around the Torah, and the Torah is wrapped around us, that's the extent of how much we feel alive, because we're attaching ourselves to the source of life. Angels have no shaykhs to this because they're never really alive. They're never really alive. I know it sounds like a little bit of a ridiculous, like what are we even talking about? It's Hashem answering angels, but do you think the angels need to hear this? Why do we even know about these things? Because Hashem wants us to hear. The Midrash is basically telling us, do you want to understand what you really have? Well, let's listen to how God answers the angels. Pay attention to how He's explaining to them why He's giving us the Torah, because maybe sometimes to tell it to us straight would be too intense. Like quite often in life, we learn about the greatest lessons of life by hearing how someone else is being told something, or how I tell someone else, right? Do this with our children sometimes. We'll tell our child something, a different child something, perhaps very, very strong, maybe even extra strong, because we know a few other children are listening at the same time. It's not the best thing to do. But
also for the positive.
Also for the positive, nachon.
You will tell someone something that you're a child to the positive, knowing that they are hearing.
Right. Wow. Yeah, amazing. The way that you got up and got dressed makes me feel like I want to take you out for, right? And the other kid is right. So I feel like sometimes when we have these sichot, when we hear about these conversations that God has with angels, it's Hashem really saying, pay close attention. I really want to let you know what you have access to. And for some people, they need to hear it secondhand. Like they need to hear it like klisheni, even though it's really meant for us. Okay? We have a whole parsha in the Torah like that. There's one parsha in the Torah that Hashem doesn't talk to Yidden at all, but it's the greatest love poem between Hashem and Yidden. Balak. We don't show up, and that's. If we said this a few years ago, if the Torah continued, if it went from Chukat to Pinchas, besides the end of Balak is actually the story of the Bnos Midian, but if the actual story of Balak didn't take place in the Torah, and we just continued on, there would be no problem chronologically. It wouldn't interfere with anything. We don't show up. We're not even part of it. We're not even part of the story. We don't show up once. Hashem doesn't talk to Moshe. Moshe doesn't talk to us. Moshe doesn't talk to Hashem. We don't talk to Hashem. We don't show up in the story at all. But what? It's basically us when we learn Torah. I always think about that first time we learned about Parshas Balak, where Hashem is saying, Lo hibit aven beYaakov v'lo ra'a amal b'Yisrael. Hashem doesn't really see anything wrong when He looks at Yidden. Hashem Elokav imo. God is within our midst, and we're reading this about a conversation that God has with another entity. and may have hit, the love Hashem has for us may have hit us even infinitely deeper by hearing about it the way he's talking about it to someone else. So it's a little bit corresponding to the way that it is over here, where we're hearing about Hashem answering the angels about the gift that he has to us, hearing it closer than if he would tell us straight out to our faces. So it's something to think about.
I don't know if he's going to touch on this, but like we also always think that the ideal is to be an angel, right?
Mhm.
Like, that's what we think that Hashem wants from us. But when we see that, there's like an understanding that, well, if that's what he wanted, then
He would have created us like that.
right, like, well, he wouldn't be having this conversation with the angels, like to see like maybe
Nachon.
that there's something. That
And he
that
wouldn't have
they
given the
don't
Torah.
want.
The Torah wouldn't exist. If he wanted us, right, the Torah, I don't know if he's going to say it like that, but basically what I'm getting is that if God wanted you to be an angel, he wouldn't give you laws. He wouldn't have any it wouldn't be the, what we're involved with. Like his expectation of us to do the shlichus would be different because there would be no expectation. They would do it because angels are kind of robotic. Angels just, I got to do my shlichus now. Yeah? You just do it, nachon? Okay, so look, guys. We're going to end this first paragraph. ועל כן אין לכם שייכות עם התורה, שהוא הרגשת החיוס של מקור החיים. בישראל דבוקים באלוקים חיים, שהוא חי העולמים, מקור החיות של כל העולמות. We are, in our essence, connected to the source of life. That's really that's the most important thing to remember. That everything we're doing and everything we're trying to do is that we are alive. Am Yisrael Chai is not just a theme or a good nigun. Be'emet, it's a very, very powerful statement. Am Yisrael Chai means I am connected to the source of the flow of life, of liveliness, of feeling alive. That's what my kesher in my pnimius as a people and as an individual is. Now he says a fascinating statement. HaChochma, being wisdom, hu yediat ha-sechel shebamoach. Wisdom is the knowledge, this piece of knowledge in my mind. Ubina hu hargashas halev. Bina is the feeling of the heart. This is so not Alter Rebbe right now, right? This is so not the way that many schools teach the difference between Chochma and Bina. But for today, let's just go the way Reb Tzadok flows with this. Again, what's Chochma? What does it mean that you have a yediat ha-sechel shebamoach? You know, but you know it to be true. Are you connected to it? No? So, are we not connected to facts? We could be. Bina is a hargashat balev, meaning that when I talk about a feeling in my heart, I don't have to ask, are you connected to it? If it's a feeling in your heart, you're connected to it, hopefully. Probably. A yediyah shebasechel doesn't necessarily mean that I have to be connected to it. I could know a lot of facts. I could store a lot of information. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has anything to do with how I feel about anything in the world. Right?
So is that similar to like Shmi'ah is Yidiyat Sechel and Bina is Wiyah?
Well, very, very good. Let's see what he does with it. Very good. You read ahead. I was going to say you read. No, but obviously this is that's why we did the first paragraph. By the way, this is a heavily edited, this piece. You would thank me. Trust me. It's out there. Now, Malachim, look what he says. Malachim, yesh bahem yediah mitzad ha-chochma, she'Hashem yitbarach mashpia bahem. Okay, call them robots, call them not human, that's fine. But these entities called angels, they're created with some type of, it seems what he's saying is some type of intellect. Yediah mitzad ha-chochma, they have some capacity of understanding that Hashem gave them the, I don't want to say life.
No, he influences them.
He influences them, and thus they're able to fulfill their shlichut. The agency, very good. Right? I'm just being careful from the word life, obviously, right? Nachon. Like they live with this consciousness of, I'm able to do what I'm doing because of the appointment of the Almighty. Nachon? They have that. They have that yediyah. An angel has that yediyah. Yeah, they're not human. They're a whole world of their own. Olam malachim. But they have that. They have this inyan of, I'm doing this because this is what Hashem wanted, right? Aval en lahem hargashat halev. It's amazing. They're doing it because they know this is what Hashem wanted, but But they don't feel anything. Angels don't feel anything. Oh, you're so angelic. Now it's taking a different mahalach. Ki lo shayach hargasha b'shum davar balev. Ela al yedei metziyut ha'efuch gam ken balev. This is the deepest. It's what we said before. A person can only feel something in their heart if the opposite of it could ever be a reality. Understand? This is very deep. It's the same sentence we said before, just differently.
It's free will. If you can't choose, it doesn't mean anything.
If you can't choose, if you can't die, you're not really alive. He says again, Lo shayach hargasha b'shum davar balev. When it comes to feeling something in the heart, it is only via metziut hahifuch gam ken balev. The reality of the polar opposite being an option to also take place in your heart. You only feel real love when there's a possibility of heartbreak. Do you understand now? Well, give other examples.
Sadness, happiness.
Mamash.
Yeah.
Like dark and light, like almost anything, but he's saying that this all pertains to the hargasha shebalev. I can only really feel something in my heart that has the potential for the opposite.
You have appreciation for something if you're just going to have it.
Nachon. He's just taking the word appreciation to hargasha shebalev, right? Hargasha shebalev. This feeling of the heart. And basically, we could see already that what Reb Tzadok is saying is Torah. You only love the Torah to the extent of what your life would be like if you didn't have Torah, which is the deepest depths in the world, which is the ultimate, which is so hard to aspire. It's worth aspiring towards, but let's face it, there are a lot of things in life that if I didn't have this, it would really devastate me. But how many people can mamish say that if I didn't have learning the Torah in my life, I would be absolutely at wit's end. How many people can mamish say it? I believe deep down every person could say that, but how many people are already there feeling that, saying that? Right?
I mean, most people who have been there, who have...
So exactly. Who usually could say that? B'diuk. Those that actually didn't have Torah and then chose Torah can say that. Who's that in our parasha? Exactly. One of the reasons why this parasha is called after him. Because he could say that. He could mamish say that. You know, when at a certain age, I think it's fair to say this, many, if not most, pnimiyas dika FFBs, if you know that, there's a lot of lingo here, I'm going to say like, meaning chaver that grew up with Torah, but that like realized at a certain age it's got to be much deeper, have a certain kinat sofrim towards Bali Tshuva and Gerim, towards those that didn't grow up from or didn't grow up Jewish, because we see how by them it really is life or death. And we think by us it's life or death, but it was given to us, right? One time I was at a concert where Eviatar Banai was playing and Hanan Ben Ari was in the crowd, and he called up Hanan for a song. Hanan ended up staying on for about an hour, but that's another story. But basically he made up a song about... he wrote it on the spot about Eviatar's jealous of me because I came out of the room with the kippah on, right? Something like that. And I'm jealous of Eviatar because he didn't. But you see this inyan of someone that could actually say, you know, like the Baal Tshuva or the Ger, their inyan is that they, not just that they could assume that if they didn't have the Torah, they'd be devastated. They didn't have the Torah. They didn't. So they know what it's like to live without it. We don't know what it's... Now, I'm not recommending, okay? Very clear. I'm not recommending that those of us that grew up with a certain level of Torah be like, you want to really taste this? The Tzadok says, you got to drop it all. But just like the deeper we get and the closer we get to the Torah, to always imagine, say to yourself, can you imagine if this wasn't part of my life? Can you imagine if this wasn't what guided the way, my lens, provided me my lens? If it didn't guide me the way that I want to be in this world, chas v'chalila, chas v'shalom.
It seems like in yesterday's Tanya, the concept of it's inherent in every Jew, regardless of whether or not they have the intellectual, whether or not their chokhmah capacity is, but it's down there, deep, inherent in every Jew to love God, and the Torah just does not come out. I don't know if that's the way I interpret it.
No, that's a very simple pshat of what the Alter Rebbe said yesterday, 100%. And what do we have to do with that? We have to extract that we have to find that place. We have to get to that place. So there's certain shita by the Alter Rebbe how to get to that place. Here, Tzadok Hakohen was basically saying, stop for a second and realize this. Ask yourself when you're learning. Ask yourself when you're davening. Ask yourself when you feel alive, can you imagine being dead right now? That's what it means. You're alive right now. You're davening. Ask yourself while you're davening Hallel on Rosh Chodesh, or while you're in the zone on Shabbos, say to yourself, can you imagine if someone just basically said to you, okay, no more for you. What would that be like for you? Right? That's why the Ishbitz's mahalach is that the tzaddikim are tzaddikim because they somehow have the ability to feel, physically feel, what it would be like if someone forced them to machal Shabbos right now without actually machaling Shabbos. It's a whole crazy Ishbitz mahalach, right? But that's a far out thing. So anyway, this is basically the basar of this shir. Let's continue. V'amalachim, third line in this paragraph. V'amalachim einam ba'alei b'chira v'al ken nikrayim kaime. Shem, a malach is referred to as kayama, which means they exist. Kayama. Shem kvuim v'kayamim. Kfi ma shebara Hashem yitbarach ve'en behem shinoi. God created them, thus they exist. They know that. That's the idea that they have. But it's kviyut. There's no growth. Angels don't grow. Angels don't go to seminars and retreats and have a deeper sense of their shlichut in the world. They don't do breathing or meditations. But they live they exist. See? Keep on getting caught. They exist with a certain yediyah. That they do, Rav Tzadok is saying. They exist with a certain yediyah. V'chen ha'chokhmah kavuya v'kayma b'hem. The wisdom that they have of God being God, to whatever that means, however they know this, kavua v'kayma b'hem kol echad kvi ma she'Hashem yitbarach hishpiya bo bebriyata. The way that God created them is what they're basically with their whole shlichus. Ve'en ze karui ele yediyah v'chokhmah. It's called the yediyah v'chokhmah, but what isn't it called? Ve'lo bina v'hargasha b'lev. But never, and it's interesting because now, let's think of one of the scenarios, one of the episodes in the Torah where it involves a malach. That's so far out. It's so beyond our grasp of understanding because it just comes out of. What about a little bit later on? A little bit, yeah. I'm thinking about that also. About Yaakov Avinu fighting with Sarah Shel Esav, right? Now the way that I always imagined that fight was very even though we know it's a malach, but it seems like it's a relatable entity because it's a struggle, it's a war, it's a wrestling match, right? And they're going at it. And then at the end, he gives him this bracha. Now what's amazing is that whole entity that struggled and wrestled with Yaakov and gave us our name was literally heartless. Isn't that weird?
So like imagine giving a bracha without a heart. Yeah.
So imagine, he gave us the name, He gives us this name. Okay, Hashem then says it again, but He gives us this name. Where's it coming from? It's coming from just a yediyah entity. It's coming from a certain level of chokhmah. It's not coming from bina. It's not coming from hagasha balev, which is so So fascinating. What a fascinating concept. Now you go back to that Parshat Vayishlach, right? Vayishlach, yeah. It's in Vayishlach, right? Yeah. Vayishlach Yaakov, right? See, when Avram Avinu with the Malach that comes and says, "Don't al tishlach yadcha lanar," that's so far removed from interaction with that, with people. That Malach with Yaakov was such a literally like a face-to-face interaction.
Also, Yaakov is Malachim also, right?
The beginning of the parsha, nachon. It's very hard, right? It's very like.
Maybe the reason he was injured was because it was something that was coming from here and not from here.
So therefore, he could only be physically injured, but not spiritually injured.
I don't know, but I'm saying maybe there's some significance to the fact that there was a physical injury that happened in this interaction that he had with the Malach.
Right.
Because it wasn't something that penetrated deeper, it was something that was up here. And maybe the physical injury somehow represented that. I don't know.
No, there's a Torah on what you're saying. What's that?
The Tzadok says the Gita Nasha is Tisha B'Av. So it does like
That it did get somewhere.
penetrate, right?
There's a famous Slonim Torah on what you just said about one of the most famous Slonim Torahs is about the 3 levels of Emunah, about Emunas HaMoach, Emunas HaLev, and Emunat HaIvarim, right? So a person had the Emunah of the intellect, and there's Emunah of the heart, and there's the Emunah of the limbs, like Kol Atzmotai Tomarna Hashem Mikamocha. So the Malach, this heartless entity, saw that it had nothing when it came to trying to blemish Yaakov with the Emunah of the Moach. It had nothing with the Emunah of the Lev, so he's like, what do I have left? So he injures him physically, thinking that that's gonna, leave a mark, which it left a mark, but it didn't end, it didn't end the story. Anyway, there's far out stuff, mamash far out stuff. Okay, Yisrael, yesh lahem bina shehi haragasha shebalev. But what about us? This is what makes us who we are. What makes me, personally, who I am. Bina, right? Yisrael, yesh lahem bina shehi haragasha shebalev. V'chol chochmatam nimshacha mitzad haragashat libam. Their chochma is actually drawn from the hargasha of their heart. It's not that they have a seichel which then creates the feeling of the heart. It's that our intellect is actually drawn from what we know that we feel in our heart. Again, this is very not the way the Alter Rebbe understands these concepts based on the Arizal, but this is a whole school of thought in the Polish world of Chassidus, based on the Yida Kodesh, based on the Chayz of Lublin, the Noam Elimelech. So this is an amazing thing. Again, I'm going to read these words again. V'Yisrael yesh lem bina shehi hargasha shebalev, v'chol chochmatam nimshacha mitzad hargashat libam. When you and I have chochma, real wisdom, that we understand something, or we have something wise to share with the world, the way that he says here is that we operate, that whether we realize it or not, it's our hargasha shebalev, it's our feeling in our heart that is more or less designing our world of machshava, our world of thought.
Is there an intuition maybe?
יכול להיות. Could be. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what this means, because for each person this shows up differently also. So I don't know exactly.
What does that say about the angels then? Meaning we're saying that it starts from the heart.
That the angels, it starts from the mind and ends with the mind. I think that's a good diuk. By the angel, it starts with the mind and it ends with the mind, because there is no bina. By us, I think what he's saying is it does start in the heart, and I don't want to say that it ends in the mind. I want to say that it ends back in the heart, but it goes up to the mind, then back to the heart. I wouldn't want it to end with the mind. I want it to end back with the heart. Nachon? I know this is pretty far out stuff, but I think that's what the diuk of what we're saying about how Hashem answered the angels, saying, this is not your world. You have no, and the Torah is all this dance between the heart and the mind, and the heart and the mind, back and forth, back and forth. Malachim, you have no shaykhs to this. Your angels, it's not your thing. Now, you have a great level of intellect, of godly grasping. It's amazing. A malach is a shliach. That's just a committed shliach. But that's not, if we ever, I think like some of us, like Shoshana, similar to what you were saying, we have this ideal to be a malach. But even a malach like this, just a shliach that just does what they're supposed to be doing all the time. And some of us end up acting like that, and then we burn out big time. Why? Because we stop feeling anything. There's no bina, there's no hargasha shebalev. So we burn out.
Seems like it could be a blessing. Seems like it could be a blessing for some, like me, because sometimes the heart gets in the way of things. It's almost like I feel like I would want to bless someone. I feel like it would be a nice bracha to receive. To like not let your heart get in the way of things sometimes. Like sometimes just do, and then I'd say, bless you be that angelic, so angelic, that, you know?
It could be.
Yeah. So it sounds like.
Yeah. I'm giving myself a lot of musar now because I spent time yesterday with Rav Ginsburg again in his home, and everyone refers to him as the malach. But that's not, it's like, I also saw someone that feels so much so much hargasha. It's amazing how much, the last 10 years, all I've heard him talking about is the non-Jewish world. About learning and teaching Torah with non-Jews. It's like this amazing hargasha shebalev spreading to the whole world. He's pushing all his students. I'll tell you, I went a few years ago, I'm talking about just someone that's so bechokhmah, but so with the hargasha of the heart. About 3 or 4 years ago, his shamus asked me to come to an event that he had in Yerushalayim. He says, the Rav wants to talk to you after the shir. You show up. I went there. They say, okay, come to the back of this car. It was very shady. They're like, come sit in the back of this car. So I'm waiting in the back of this very shady stuff. I'm waiting in the back of the car, and then the Rav comes into the front. So he didn't want anyone to hear about this. That's what it was. So there's a little bit big crowd there. And he basically sent me on a mission with his maskir to go to the Misrad HaChutz, the minister, the foreign affair, yeah, foreign ministry. So I went there and had a meeting with, her name is Tzipi Chotoveli. You've heard of her? Now she's a shagrira she's an ambassador in England. Back then she was the deputy foreign minister. So I didn't really fully understand. I said, I'll go, but he has to talk, right? Like the gabbai has to, he has to give it over really strong. And it was a shlichus from the Rebbe just saying, with all the chokhmah that's been accumulated all these years, Am Yisrael has to plant the chokhmah through our leiv into the non-Jewish world. It's unbelievable. So I was thinking about this yesterday. I was looking at him, and now I'm thinking about this malach. I'm never going to call him that.
What was the action he was trying to do?
He was trying through the foreign ministry.
Yeah.
He wanted to make some kind of a shidduch between his talmidim and his, I don't want to say ministry, his whole gal einai, his institute, right? That it can have connections to all the ambassadors that come to Israel, that are ambassadors in Israel. That was the point of the meeting. Set up workshops with them and learning with them, and then for them to take back to their countries afterwards. She didn't buy it at all. It was not at all. She said something like, she's a very charif woman, not in a bad way, just very. You have to be in her position. Very, yeah. You know her a little bit, yeah. But you have to be in the situation. Okay. בישראל יש להם בינה שהיא ההרגשה שבלב, וכל חוכמתם נמשכה מצד הרגשת ליבם. כי מה שמרגיש בלב, listen to these words, כי מה שמרגיש בלב הוא כמו שרואה בעיניו. By a yid, what we feel in our heart is as clear to us as what we see with our eyes. וכן במתן תורה, בתורה שבכתב, אף שהיא נתונה מן השמיים, something that was written from the heavens, it says, וכל העם רואים את הקולות, שהיו רואים את הנשמע, that we reach the level of seeing something that can really, essentially, only be heard, right? And look at this dagger line that Reb Tzadok says. The shmiya hu hayediya shebemoach hadavar sheshomea. This is connected to what you were saying before. Hearing corresponds and correlates to the knowledge of the thing that I'm hearing that goes into my mind. That's what shmiya is. Shmiya has to do with the chokhmah. Aval re'iyah hu al yedei hargasha shebalev. Seeing relates to that which I feel in my heart. Like when you feel something in your heart, Chazal say, Eino dome shmiya l're'iyah, right? Chazal say you can't compare hearing to seeing. So what are they basically saying? What's more effective? Seeing, right? So he's saying, Chokhmah, I hear things intellectually, the extent that it could really be clear to me and that I could see it is limited. It's limited. It's real, but it's limited. Re'iyah, he's saying, is such a deep, deep thing that when it comes from the hargasha shebalev, that I could actually see what I'm feeling. I see it. I see the whole thing.
So is he saying that shmi'ah and
Chokhmah.
and chokhmah and Torah shebal peh are the same, and Torah shebichtav and re'iyah and lev are the same?
So it's interesting. I don't know where Torah shebal peh would fit in here. I do know where Torah shebichtav would fit in, because he said it. It would be, yeah. Yeah.
What about Shema Yisrael, Shema Elokeinu, Shema Echad? It's funny, like that's our, that's like the essence of it.
I'll give you even harder kashyas.
Yeah.
There's a lot of kashyas, but you cannot approach this with the psukim that may allude to something else, because he's not speaking about. The way he develops this is not at all the way that we're used to. That's the truth. It's a completely different. You got to pull off your Chabad head for this. And my last lot. There's no way you cannot wrap your heart around.
It makes sense that when you see something, it will like penetrate more, but that only starts like the process starts at hearing. So Shema Yisrael could be like that's the beginning point. And then once you have that, then you can see. If you don't have that, then you could look at things and you won't even see them. They'll be right in front of your eyes.
But you have to connect the Shema to whatever you're hearing to the Hargasha Shebalev. If not, it won't have any kiyum.
For deaf people, and the way they do Shema is like this. Not hearing, because it's irrelevant to them. It's paying attention.
Oh my God, Mamish, that's how they do it? Shema Yisrael?
Shema Yisrael and then go.
But Shema, they go like this? Oh my God.
Yeah, I was
What a
very
far
hard
out
for
Torah.
Tzadok in that, because it's such a,
That's such a far out Torah. Then.
Like focus.
yeah, paying attention to what's around you. If you can't hear, then it's
Usually we go shema.
but for us.
Right, isn't that weird? Why do we go like this if...
Like we get distracted by our
Or what about this? Shema. Shema Yisrael.
Because they have different senses than us, because they don't.
Yeah?
Because they, so there's hearing impaired or blind.
Yeah, hearing.
Yeah, what'd you say? Hearing, yeah.
So they have different senses than us, so they see it,
Yeah,
feel it differently.
yeah, it's so deep.
Very cool.
It's very far out, wow.
Well, the word for pay attention, isn't that something, the Hebrew word for pay attention is.
Put a heart.
Lev.
Yeah, simu lev, yeah. Sim lev, place your heart. Yeah, I never understood the word pay when it came, but in the context of pay attention. I never understood it. No, but I always thought about it. Like, why over here are we dealing with the language of pay attention?
Kids don't understand it either.
I don't know. I'm not darshaning English. It's enough darshaning Hebrew over here, right?
We also experience the senses differently, but I read this book of someone that had an afterlife experience, and there was no distinction between the senses. Hearing, seeing, all the senses were one.
That's what their says on
That's how the Rashi says, the Mefarshim, the Rishonim explain the senses working in Matan Torah exactly like this. And that is why they say that everything got healed as a result of all the senses working in unison. That was the Galut of Har Sinai. When Rashi brings the Midrash, when it says, everyone that limped, that was, stopped limping, and anyone that was, it's because all the senses were working in unison. So Nachon, we're still speaking of this teaching as if there's like Shmiya, Re'iyah, but in the emes, of Metzias Hashem, of the reality of Hashem, Ein Od Milvado, and all the senses, ideally, there's no milchama, but even this topic of senses and everything is still nothing to do with angels. Like to go back to the beginning of this, we're so deep in the parsha now of Re'iyah and Shmiya. It's bichlal lo kashur. By the angels, where we understand it, it is just a level of, based on this, Re'iyah or Shmiya. Just Shmiya v'zeh. So even Yitro begins his journey like an angel. Vayishma. He begins it like an angel. Chochma. I heard this. Wow, this makes, I intellectually grasp that these people are made out of something else. Something incredible is going on with them, and I have to go to see it. Meaning what? I have to go to experience it, right? And Gewalt does he, right? And then he starts talking to Moshe Rabbeinu, giving eitzas of Lev. Atat chazem mikol ha'amim, right? Moshe Rabbeinu, the most humble person in the world, receiving eitzah by someone who 24 hours prior was like the biggest Ovid Avodah Zarah that the world ever saw. And now he has a Hargasha Shebalev, and Moshe Rabbeinu takes it with his utmost humility. He's like, I have something to learn from you too. You're a person that went from the head to the heart. You came to see it. You came to have Re'iyah. You came to have Lev. I'm going to take it, yeah.
What's interesting about this Mahalach, though, it's usually you assume it's like Yitro, you hear and then you see, like you start lowering
Right.
your heart. You hear it, he's saying that Am Yisrael couldn't even hear until they saw, which is hafuch.
Am Yisrael couldn't hear until they saw.
Like they couldn't even understand intellectually.
Nachon. Velo shamu el Moshe, they couldn't intellectually grasp anything until they felt it. And then when they felt it, I think that's what he's basing this teaching on. Exactly. Very good. That's exactly what he's saying. The Torah lets us know. Velo shamu. But by here, think about it, how it's not so far down the line. It's like pretty quick transformation. Just a few years of transformation. When did it happen that we couldn't hear? Right, so about a year and change before Atem reitem v'chol ha'am roim et hakolot roim et hanishma. It's amazing. It's an amazing thing.
It's like the whole ear hole, the body keeps the score, right? Like, right? That's the whole thing. That it's like from all in our whole body, we're all feeling everything, and so we can feel the next thing, like move into the next.
It's unbelievable.
Feeling we can't take in.
That's what was. It seems like that's what Nachon. So look how he says. He ends off here so beautifully. V'zeu ikar matan Torah liYisrael. The Torah being given to us was for the following purpose: sheyeh nivla belibam. This is an amazing usage of words here. Nivla belibam means swallowed in the heart. That it should be swallowed up in your heart. And I think that when the Torah is swallowed up in your heart, you are alive. You feel a lot more alive than any other level and sensation of being alive. כמו שכתוב, כתבם על לוח ליבך. Engrave these words on the board of your heart. ולעתיד נאמר, and in the future it says, whatever you didn't end up doing, Hashem says, ועל ליבם אכתבנה. I'm going to finish it. I'm going to go to the heart board. Imagine, remember, today everyone uses, who remembers chalk? Right? Chalk. That sound of chalk. Imagine, even. Right. Anyway, I give us a bracha based on this piece from the Tzadok is to, I give us a bracha from the heart. It's traveling to the mind, then it's going to come back to the heart. That Be'ezrat Hashem, what I'm feeling from this is like a tefillah. Because for me, this leaves me with just a tefillah, Yibon Shleiman. Please reveal to me my source of life. Reveal to me my source of kiyum in this world. And may that be the Masorah that I give on to my children. I want my children to feel alive. Like everyone says, I want my kids to feel frum. Just stop that word, say alive. Now it really means the same thing, right? Alive means that my life force, my vitality, can only be received from the Makor HaChaim, from the source of life, through the Torah Kedosha. And that, God forbid, like I should really feel, whether I'm Baal Tshuva, a ger, or someone that grew up with Torah, I should really, really feel that if I didn't have Shabbos, I'd be dead. I should really feel that. I should really feel if I didn't have Purim coming up, I'd mamish be dead. Like literally, I should feel that. I should feel that. Our children should feel that. Be'ezrat Hashem. All right. Shukran, everyone.